Mike's on.
Dollar General usually has it.
Okay, I call to order the Town Board regular meeting for Rolesville, July 7th, 2020. If you would, all stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have Jim Upchurch here tonight from Christ Church. He's going to lead us in prayer. So thank you for coming, Jim.
Thank you for having me up. We haven't been able to meet in the community center for a few months, but we're thankful to have been a part of the town for the last 8 years or so and look forward to continuing to do that.
Yeah, for you guys don't know, he actually meets next door on Sundays.
We used to.
Used to.
Hopefully soon. Hopefully soon. That's right. Let's pray together. Father, we praise you because you are the righteous and just King over all of the universe. We praise you for your sovereign rule over all things. And Father, we confess that we are limited and finite in ourselves. We confess our failure to acknowledge you as God sometimes, our failure to lead righteously, and our failure to wield our authority, the authority you've given us, for good means. But we thank you for the grace that you've given us in Jesus Christ and his death and resurrection. We thank you for the provision that you've given us and give us every day of life and breath and everything that we have. I thank you for those assembled here today who have given of their time and energy, who have suffered through trials and frustrations in order to serve our town. And we thank you for the ways in which they do reflect your justice and righteousness. Father, we ask for the peace and prosperity of the town of Rolesville. We ask for these who are here that you'd give them wisdom and discernment to know the needs of the town and how to manage the affairs well. We pray that you would give them love and civility toward one another, that they would be kind and courteous even in disagreements, and so giving an example to others and to our town. We pray that you would help them to remember the overlooked, the unheard, the poor, the abused in our town. And I pray for each one as well that you'd give them personal peace in their own lives, that you'd give them health and well-being for their families and safety, and that you would give them love and joy in this life. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Jim.
you.
Okay. Tonight we are getting a little bit closer back to our regular agenda. And that's a good thing, I think. I'm kind of glad we are getting more back to a routine. We will continue to stay spaced out like we are here tonight, probably for the foreseeable future, until this social distances and personal space type thing is conquered a little bit with the virus. We'll probably continue to be spaced out and also kind of handle the public. Try to keep the public spaced out too. But we are going to have a call for public to be heard. And was there anybody in the next room signed up or anybody here?
Double check.
All right, double check if you would. So, so welcome the public back if you if you would like to come to a meeting again. We are operating some in the room here at a very limited amount, but also we have a space next door that's a lot more spacious that you can go to and spread out in. So if you're watching today or listening, in the future, we invite you back. We do the public call for public the first Monday, the first meeting of the month, the first Tuesday of the month. So keep that in mind. So Robin, was no one over there?
No, sir.
Okay. I believe you have one that was submitted.
I do. I have one that was submitted online on June 18th, and it's in the form of questions. I will read them from citizen Bryant West. The first question, he says, "Good evening, everyone. Why are we giving the fire department almost $1 million? What does that money pay for specifically? I know their service, but we need a breakdown of those services. Has there been a study done to hire and build our own fire department? His second question is, in a town that is growing really fast, we see an increase of minorities. When I look at the staff, it doesn't reflect the town at all. What is being done to hire, not elect, people of color? Why do we only have one person of color in a management position? Does Rolesville practice affirmative action? And in his last question, does the town have evaluations with its staff? How does the town manager deal with complaints that may come into HR from employees? Is the HR department full-time or pulling double duty? And that is the conclusion of his questions.
Okay. Thank you, Robin. And I think we did provide answers to those questions, or did we not?
Yeah, we were given copies. We
Okay.
redlined the answers, yes.
And those, I would think our answers is provided to the public too. So it is in public record, the answers that was provided. So everyone can see not only answers to him, but to the public. Good.
Did we have these prior to tonight? This is my first time seeing this. Mine too.
No, I think they just came in. I responded to him, so I think the copy is for you. And this is, now you see also I responded to him in a timely fashion, not made him wait till tonight. So the response was made sooner, and then we read them tonight, and you see the response.
So are we reading the answers to the public? I'm confused.
No, I don't think so. I think you had the responses. I think, Mayor, if I might, were you suggesting include them in the minutes?
Yes, in the minutes.
Gotcha.
Be fine.
Okay. I didn't understand your question.
Yeah. And I think, at some point in time, we probably need to have, what does this come in on? Is it a visible type place it comes in, like a board or something, or is it more like an email that it comes in on, these questions?
If I, Clerk, you can correct me, but it looks like it came directly to you and the clerk. Is that right? As an email, as a form. Okay.
It'd be good to be able to see that if you come into our website somehow, maybe somehow.
Do you want these in advance in future?
Yeah.
Would it make more sense?
Okay, that'd be fine. Right now, we just collect them and read them at the public hearing point, because that's what you asked for. So
Okay.
we'd be happy to put them, as they come in, send them out to you in response, send you out to them in advance.
Okay. Yeah, I think as long as it's the condition we're in with the coronavirus, there's still going to be a lot of people probably sending comments in by email or either some other means to so.
So wait, let me understand this. So you're saying as the questions come in, they'll be posted on the site, on the public site?
Michelle, would you speak into your microphone so we can hear you?
I forgot about that. Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Pesky thing.
Okay. All right, so I'm just curious, where are these questions going when they first come in? Where will they be going?
Yeah, I think they originally the temp is they come in and the first time they just public comment. So it may not be a question, it may be a public comment, but we will voice them as a public comment when they come in. But I'm thinking it may be a good idea to make it even a little bit better to somehow put them out there where you can see them also.
Okay, so I thought that's what you were saying. But where's the sense of privacy when someone's asking you a question? I mean, are these questions being directed to
No.
town manager or?
They're being sent in for public comment.
Okay,
Mayor, if I may, they come in on our website via a form. Come directly to my email.
that's what I was asking. Okay.
I believe what is being asked is that I share with the board.
Okay, that's what I'm asking because it doesn't sound like that's what Ronnie was saying.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, gotcha. Because some people don't want everyone to know what their question
No,
is.
it's only if it's sent in
Okay.
for purpose of public comment.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm thinking that's what this one is sent in as a public.
As a public comment, right, so, okay. All right, thank you.
Makes sense, everybody?
So what if someone sends a question to the board, to all of the board members at once? Doesn't that become a public meeting forum?
That's a David question.
I'm just curious, because I know that people do that. They send us, like, all of us one email asking
Right.
questions or making a statement.
So everything that comes into the town that comes in as a record, unless it's excluded, is a public record. But that, of all the public records, we also have, during this period of time, written public comments that are coming in as a supplement to what we would normally have done prior to the COVID issues, which was just, if you wanted to have public comment, you had to be here. We've expanded that to those who may feel they are at risk if they were to expose themselves by coming to a meeting. So adding to that the online portal. So that's in addition to rather than alternative. When we first were doing these meetings, you'll remember that there was no opportunity to come for the public comment. And the General Assembly has said you need to make some provision via electronic format during these times if you're doing that. General Assembly expecting that that would have been in the setting of a virtual meeting. We're sort of trying to blend all of that to ensure there's access.
So got that part, but
Okay.
my question specifically was, if someone sends a comment or a question to all of the board members,
Yes.
not individually, because they do both, right?
Right?
Does that need to be revealed to the public because it's coming to all of us
So
in advance of the meeting?
So the answer is all of it's a public record. So if someone sends a message to all of the board members together, that's a public record. If someone sends a message to just a commissioner in their public role, that's a public record.
But my question, yeah, how would it become?
All of them are kept by the town clerk, and if someone were to request a copy, they're entitled to receive them.
That's what, I guess that's what.
Just like all of our other
Gotcha.
records.
Gotcha, okay. So they would have to say, I want this to be included in public comments for it to be broadcast.
And that's the way the system is currently set up. The person would
I got it.
have put it into the public comment portal, and then it's essentially a supplement to someone walking in here that day.
Thank you for that
But the
clarification.
important thing is that anything that comes in is a public record. Okay?
Yeah. By request, anybody can see anything that we receive or communicate.
Of course.
And I think the General Assembly said we have to have it available at least once a month, if I recall.
That's correct. So the statute is public comment at a meeting, at a regular meeting, at least once a month. That's the statute. It's also the U.S. constitutional minimum. So
Thank you for that lesson, because I needed it. Thank you, appreciate it.
way more than you were asking for. Sorry.
All right. Next item is Town Board Liaison reports. Planning Board is first. Commissioner Medley.
It was a very short meeting, 30 minutes, I'm just saying. And basically, they just had a couple of questions about, what was that? The mixed-use master plan, 1903, PR 1903. There were just a couple of general questions about the road by CVS. What else? What type of commercial was going in the front? When would that be happening? Who was going to be maintaining the lot? So it was very generalized, very short. Not too much. Is Danny here? No, he's not. Okay. Yeah, there wasn't much more to it, so that was really the gist of it. Kelly, you watched that one, right? Oh. Okay. Yeah, that was it. So not much to report.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, Commissioner Vilga.
I don't have a report because our meeting was canceled this month.
Okay, thank you. Economic Development, Commissioner Sutton.
Fast, that got to me quickly. Add a little more time. So I don't have a long report. I know that Michael, our economic development manager, is going to give an extensive report later. So, but what I do want to highlight is that we do have our Chamber of Commerce meeting coming up with the Chamber, which I think is great. Looking forward to that. My emphasis is on businesses. I know that we are doing a lot in the town as far as developments and trying to get some other developments going, commercial stuff. But my focus is on our businesses in town, especially amidst COVID-19, and how our businesses are doing. So I have a big focus on that. We were supposed to hold on June 25th a business after hours that the town was going to sponsor. It was the first one that we were going to sponsor. Due to the situation, we did not hold that, and hopefully we can hold one later or do a virtual one. That is a goal of mine. But I had the opportunity to meet in late May with Wake Tech, and I do think there's a ton of opportunities. Rachel and I met with the Wake Tech person that's over the entrepreneurship program. They have some excellent programs, and I want to see us do more partnership with them. They have a lot. I mean, I took extensive notes on a 30-minute call with her. It was just phenomenal. And then you all should have, just reminding you, you should have this new business resource that we're using. We got some good resources out there. And more to come on REDAC. We're working on that. I think Jackie has put some effort into, the IRS is, I guess they're on COVID times like everyone else, so they're short-staffed. So we are still trying to work through the REDAC process of figuring out how we can, I guess, morph that into what we need it to be. So more to come on that, but we are working, and Michael's going to bring more later. So I'll stop there.
Okay. And if I can add to what Sheila said, Michael and I were on the phone on several occasions. I think it was Friday a week ago, trying to talk to the IRS. Once the phone lines were down, once they were up, then there was a 15-minute wait. Then we waited 20 minutes. Then it got cut off. And I hung around here for a while. And Michael and I both got frustrated and said, let's try it again next week. So I let Michael know that I'm flexible tomorrow. And so after 10:30, 11 o'clock. And maybe he and I can come back in his office, because I wanted him to be a part of it to make sure that we get everything that you need. And we'll give it a shot again.
Yes, thank you, Jackie.
Okay. Okay.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you. Public Safety, Commissioner Wilson.
Since we had our last meeting, in fact, I believe the night that we had our last meeting a couple of weeks ago, Chief Privet and part of the board met with the firemen, the full-time firemen, the 11 full-time firemen that we are concerned about losing to other municipalities. And during the course of that meeting, they had their current benefits provider present at that meeting. And it became very evident that what they have now in place cannot compete with state benefits as far as retirement and other insurance areas. And they're getting antsy. And they're also being recruited by other municipalities. Kelly is aware of this, and he's sent me a memo where he has asked Greg Grayson to develop a proposal, and we are anticipating a meeting with me and Kelly and Greg and Chief Privet and Spence Jones, the chair of the board of the fire department board, next week.
Not Greg.
Okay.
The rest of the group to get together and talk about that.
Okay. Okay. There's a big sense of urgency now because if we don't do something soon or find an answer to it, we're not going to have full-time employees. We're going to have a big, big problem that's going to affect our response times as first responders, as well as our ability to maintain a good service to the public in the event of fire or other emergencies, because we're surrounded by the fire departments, municipal, that do provide their firefighters with good benefits, state benefits.
Can I ask Jackie, just for clarification, what benefits do our firefighters not have?
Retirement, retirement on a state level of benefits, as well as one of the questions came up, if one of our firefighters gets hurt, what happens to their income? And the answer was, well, it goes away. Well, if you get hurt and on state benefits, those benefits continue. That was one of the most glaring. But anyway, I've told you for 3 meetings in a row that we need a sense of urgency on this, and Kelly is aware of that. And Kelly, we are meeting with Rodney and Spence.
I'm waiting confirmation of their availability.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right. So we can see if we can figure out a way that we can make these people, and I'm speaking not out of turn, but from my heart, that we've got to make these people, find a way to make these people town employees.
Isn't Mr. Grayson key to that conversation, though?
Your question was?
Isn't he key to that conversation? Because I know I've been in the meeting with him in there, and he holds a lot of answers to what Rolesville needs.
So the intent of the meeting this week is to have the leadership talk about what they want to do
Gotcha. Okay,
and then make some decisions where to go.
okay. And
Why
then he'll
isn't
come
that
in
a-
afterwards.
Why isn't that a presentation to the board?
And that may be the recommendation of the group.
Yes,
Or a
yes.
work session.
I can tell you from going to the meetings, the board supports the town taking these employees. And if it means taking the whole fire department, the board will support that too. And when I say the board, I'm talking about the fire department board, because they know that this is dire.
When I said board, I was referring to this board.
Yeah.
Just for clarification purposes.
And this may be a result of our meeting next week.
I guess I don't understand. Can you explain the meeting next week? I'm confused.
I'm trying to get a small group together to give some guidance on what to do next. So, sounds like you're giving your representative of public safety and the mayor some guidance of your interest of having a work session. There's no time schedule right now.
I guess I'm not understanding what the meeting is for next week then,
No, the meeting this week, I'm trying to get scheduled,
this week.
is with the fire chief, the board chair of the fire department, Mr. Wilson, the mayor, and myself to talk about what are we going to do next.
I get Sheila's question, because it does seem like it would be dragging it out if the request is to have them come before the board as an entire group. You know what I'm saying? So you're scheduling something this week, not complaining. You're scheduling something this week, and then you're going to decide where to go, but eventually they have to come before the board anyway, and you have to get other people involved in this conversation outside of the board. So seems like you're dragging it along, but you're saying it's urgent that we do something sooner
Okay.
than later.
I can tell you.
I'm assuming that's along the lines of what you were trying to say,
I was
Sheila?
just trying to get clarity on what the meeting was for.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right.
That's it. That was my question. That
Okay.
really was my
Okay.
question.
All right.
But I'm okay with whichever way you do it, but it does seem like it's dragging it out a little bit.
I agree with you, and it is, but Kelly can tell you it's complicated too.
Oh, I
It's been, okay, step back, it's been 10 days since the letter came in. So I'm just want to make sure to remind you. And so.
I'm not complaining.
yeah,
I was
ju-
just trying to get where
right.
Sheila was lost
Right,
when
I
she
understand.
kept asking.
And
Okay.
also, we got to get the consultant involved, and probably need to, get you guys plugged into the consultant too, what his opinions or her opinions, I think it's a him, ain't it? What his opinions is on how we can do, do it. So you're gonna have to gather information really quick from different places. And Jackie is telling us there's a sense of urgency there. So I think we'll get it started pretty quick, but I think you've reached out to the consultant, right?
Is the consultant Mr. Grayson or somebody else?
So I've reached out, we've had consultation with 4 communities and the municipal league and with Mr. Grayson. Mr. Grayson has provided, just yesterday late, came in with a proposal that I was going to share with that small working group first to talk about what do we do with this. So,
Gotcha.
Anything else?
No.
Your poor update, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just asked what the
That's
meeting
okay.
was for.
Thank you, Jackie. Okay, consent agenda. There's 6 items on the consent agenda. I hear there's a recommendation to make amendment to item number 3. So what's the wish of the board on the consent agenda?
So I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with one update. And that, I just lost my page, that quick. With one change on the Wake Transit Local Area Roles and Responsibility Agreement. Do I need to read what's on the sheet? So I vote to approve that agreement, but I want to have the staff add administratively about, they put in there that we have the opportunity as the town to request additional routes. And when this first started back in October, I mentioned or asked why we didn't have a route, or could we have a route that stops or stop at Lowe's Foods? Because I feel like that would be beneficial to our residents, especially our seniors or our young folks, to be able to get down to that shopping area. And so I want to make sure we put that in there as a part of the agreement, that they will look at that and consider what we need to do to have that added to this agreement eventually, if we can. Like the
Which Lowe's
feasibility
Food
of
are
it.
you speaking?
Lowe's Foods on 401.
On 401,
It doesn't
okay.
stop in
Okay.
that area, and there's
That's
a lot
good.
of people there that
Yes.
could take advantage of that. So if
Good
we can
point.
add that administratively, I'm good with approving the consent agenda. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion with amendment. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion, a second. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Didn't hear any. 5-0. Thank you. Next item, item of business is the Community Input on Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA. And we have a draft transition plan on that. And I think, Amy, are you kicking that off?
Sir, my microphone, I believe it's on now. Can you hear me? Gary? Yes. Okay, good, thank you. Okay, good evening, Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, transition plan. We have had a small team here among the staff working on this project for the last several months. So a couple of our staff members are in here. Dieva Hill from Human Resources, Michael McFarland from Community and Economic Development, myself, as well as in consultation with the town manager, have been working on this transition plan. So we have 2 purposes tonight. One is to spend a little time walking you all through this plan, to familiarize yourselves with it and talk about what's in there. And then our second purpose is to provide an opportunity for members of the community to come in and provide their input on this as well, in a verbal and a community meeting sense. So, the presentation tonight, here's the outline. If you had a chance to look through the plan, it should look familiar because this outline exactly matches the plan itself. So as we go through this presentation, I would encourage you to follow along with the actual plan itself that was in your agenda packet for the night. So there's 6 sections to the transition plan, and then at the end we'll have that opportunity for public comment. One thing I do want to point out about our this plan is that a big section of this is the self-evaluation section. And so we'll be spending a lot of time there and talking about what the self-evaluation was and what we discovered. So what is the ADA? I'm not usually one much to read during a presentation, but I found this description of it on the ADA's main website, and I thought it's a perfect summation of what the Americans with Disabilities Act is. So bear with me. The ADA is one of America's most comprehensive pieces of civil rights legislation that prohibits discrimination and guarantees that people with disabilities have the same opportunities as everyone else to participate in the mainstream of American life, to enjoy employment opportunities, to purchase goods and services, and to participate in state and local government programs and services. So of the transition plan, pages 1 and 2 outline the different titles that are contained within the ADA. So this is really sort of a background informational piece for you all. Title 2 is the piece that most directly relates, excuse me, to state and local government activities. And so that's the piece that relates to what we do here at the town of Rolesville. And Title II says basically that people with disabilities must have an equal opportunity to participate in and benefit from our services, programs, and activities. Now, as a government unit, the town has always been required to follow the ADA. But as a community reaches about 50 employees is when that community is required to actually create a written, formal transition plan about how they're going to, what their statement of policy is, how they're going to meet the requirements of the ADA, et cetera. And so we are at that point where we're on the cusp of reaching our 50 employees, so it was time to go ahead and do this. So one of those components, as I mentioned, is the town policy. And so that is on page 4 of the plan. Contains a few different components to it. This policy is one that is based on a template that's out there. It's been used by several other communities across the state. But you have an opportunity, if there's some issues in there, some wording you'd like changed, we always have the opportunity to amend. But this would be an important thing. It's mainly the statement. This confirms that town does not discriminate based on disability, that the town will provide appropriate aids and services to facilitate communication, and that the town will make reasonable modifications to programs and facilities in order to accommodate individuals with disabilities. Then we're on to our big section I mentioned earlier, the self-evaluation piece. So under the ADA, we're required to perform a self-evaluation of current services so that we can prove that we are providing accessibility and not adversely affecting individuals with disabilities. So on page 6 is where we begin with that actual self-evaluation. And we started with the communications, information, and facility signage. Covers a variety of different areas. As we went through these different self-assessments, we tried to first take an inventory of what we have and then come up with some findings on where are we, what do we need to change, to improve, or do we meet what's required. So a couple of things you see here in the presentation is we looked at our personnel policy to see if we have a statement about equal opportunity in recruitment for individuals with disabilities. And so within our policy, there was indeed that statement already existing, so our findings were positive there. Second item showing on this slide is a little sample from an agenda from a board meeting. And if you'll notice, we've started doing this. This was one that we realized we needed to beef up a little bit. So you'll notice at the bottom of tonight's agenda, there's a statement that says we're committed to providing accessible services, and if you need assistance or an accommodation for this public meeting, to contact the town. So some individuals may have hearing disabilities, they may have vision, maybe they need a large print agenda, or they may need some assistance with being able to hear the meeting. Those are things that we can address now that we have done that assessment and are prepared to do that. I think I speak on behalf of all of us on the team and some other members of staff that going through this process certainly raised our awareness of some of the issues out there and has made us has made us better prepared to address some of the needs.
It's funny how you don't even think about the font and the type and how that matters. You know? So this is good.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely one. In fact, I had to go back and change the font on my headers of this very presentation because it was not meeting those guidelines. I got halfway through and thought, I better fix that. But that is important. The font, you want to make sure you don't have print that's too small. Style is important. Some of the automatic readers have difficulty reading a font if it's in a script style. You don't want flashing graphics because that can be disruptive for some individuals. And then obviously color can also be an issue if you have a little trouble reading in the presentation. And then we also looked at our town website. Fortunately, with our new website, one of the things that's available to us, you see that alt text on this slide here, it will give us errors because, again, there are some readers that help the visually impaired to be able to read these websites. And our new website will tell us if there are errors on a particular page that prohibits them from being able to use their assisted devices.
And that's built in? The website development, that's great.
Yep. All right. Next section of self-evaluation was in our public buildings and spaces. We did go out. We did not have anyone on staff who really had the expertise to be able to do a good evaluation of those facilities. So we hired a firm called Accessology. They came in and spent a few days going to all of our public buildings, our parking lots, our sidewalks, and reviewing those to see where we did or did not meet ADA accessibility requirements. They found a good list, nothing substantial to require a redo of an entire building. Most of it was just modifications of existing areas. But they did identify about $300,000 worth of improvements that would need to be done to meet full accessibility. Our plan to address this, and that's one of the reasons for this transition plan, is so that we outline how we intend to address those deficiencies. And our plan is to use our capital improvement plan over the next 10 years, a little bit of funding each year, in order to address all of those needs. For example, in FY 2021, we've already put in a small amount, $7,500, but it will help address some of these needs, even in this current budget year. In addition, we've got the police department expansion budgeted for this year. So any of the items that were found at the police department, we might be able to roll those into that renovation project.
You have priority for one project over the other?
So when Accessology came in, they did prioritize. You can see that here on page 7. They ranked certain ones. Now they have a much more detailed list. What's shown here is at a very summary level. In fact, this is the report we got from them. It's about 1.5 inches thick. It's a lot of photographs, which is great. Actually, it helps us to identify exactly where the issues are. But they did, Commissioner Medley, they did rank these based on the urgency of need.
And that's the direction you're following?
Yes, I mean, to the degree we can. We want to hit, using our 7,500, we want to try to hit some of those high priority ones this year.
Well, I see that, but with the number you said, 7,500, it seems like there's nothing here that's 7,500 unless you go to the bottom of the list. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, well, and in talking with some of our staff, they were these are generous costs. So there are some modifications that we can do to make things accessible that perhaps are not as expensive as what they've listed here.
Amy, are they, when I look at the top of page 8 and I see trails, $99,900, are we required to make our walking trails ADA?
This is one we want to explore further.
Yeah, I mean,
We've asked that question
doesn't make
ourselves.
sense.
We're going to continue to explore that and further refine that.
And I can tell you that figure, unless you do rock borings, that figure is useless. It could be, you could add another 9 to it. It could be 999,000 if we had to blast rock. And I just don't believe that the trails have to be ADA.
But did you see David shaking his head yes? I saw you shaking your head yes, so I guess there's some truth to what Jackie
Yeah,
said.
the access to them definitely
Look at
has
it.
to be.
Only access to
And
the
it-
trails. Okay.
Then there's some slope issues, but we need to we want to refine this a little bit further. We asked the same questions. We haven't drilled down into further yet, but there is going to be some access conditions we're going to address. But the balance, the the long and short of it is, the answer is it depends. What element of the trail is out of compliance or not.
Okay.
And there may be some
one thing I want-
photographs as we go through that will address some of those.
One thing I want to mention, this mostly addresses crossing for the sidewalks and trails and stuff. But I think as going forth, Jackie makes a point of, going back and fixing things can be very costly. We need to make sure things are put in correct the first time when somebody else is paying it. And for example, I don't know if they're good or bad, but you see a lot of these meandering sidewalks being put in, and some of them are pretty steep, and some of them are pretty curvy and stuff. And I'm not sure. It's the same thing as putting a regular sidewalk in. You know what I'm saying, Jackie?
Yes.
So I want to make sure those things are correct, so we don't have to come back and redo those if we have to level them per se or something. Because they're going in everywhere now. I mean, that was kind of the push of the board at one time to put those things in, and they look nice.
They look nice, but yeah,
But can everybody use them is the other question,
safely. Good point.
So I think we're going to go through some photographs, a little bit of what they saw. And again, this was one of those things where it really raised my awareness. I noticed some things I didn't notice before. I did kind of group these into 5 different categories of some of the results: parking, sidewalks, restrooms. So that's what we're going to see as we go through these next few slides. They looked at our parking areas. They looked in terms of what the slopes were in the lot. I don't know what happened to our, do we still have our pointer? Here it is. So, for example, here, they've had the level out here, and they would check to see what the slopes are within the parking lot. They're looking at whether we have the appropriate number of handicap spaces in a particular lot. And they also looked at some of the signage within the lots. Are they at the right height? Are they visible enough for things to be seen? So kind of going back to the 7,500, something about fixing a sign or maybe restriping the lot to add another space. Those are things we could do fairly inexpensively, but still make a good impact.
I want to just ask a little question, just so I understand the process here. So when these things are installed, they do not have to follow the requirements of the ADA initially?
They
Are
should.
supposed to? Okay.
They should. But standards do change over time as well. And so while a building may have been built to meet the standard at the time, those standards may evolve.
Oh, I get that, but have there been any signs installed like that since ever? You know what I mean? Like, how long have these signs been there? I can see it then, but if they're
Right.
rather new, then they should have already met that requirement.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know.
I don't know.
All right.
Yep. So other things they looked at were sidewalks and paths, both the running slope or the steepness, which we see over here on the right, or the level from side to side. So these were just some examples at the park. There's a pretty, they identified a little steep slope there going up to a shelter, for example, might create some barriers for certain individuals. They looked at the restrooms. This was a big one for me. I noticed sometimes when you go inside the stall and the coat rack, sometimes that little hook is down low and sometimes it's up high. Well, under our current ADA standards, they should be no more than 48 inches off the floor in order to help those who are in wheelchairs to be able to use that coat hook. So that was one, again, a minor thing, but we could make some impact by addressing some of these. Same things with the, this was an example of a towel holder. It was a little too high. Again, easy to fix and make things a little more accessible.
So Amy, clarification, going back to kind of the beginning of this presentation, you said that the requirement is 50 employees. So we wouldn't be required to make these until we reach that threshold, or would we start working toward that now?
So,
Goal.
yes, so every unit falls under the requirements of the ADA. But once you hit that 50, you're required to have a written plan about how you're going to do it.
I got you. Okay.
May I just add, with the acceptance of federal dollars soon, we will be required also.
Gotcha.
Another example of something they looked at and I never really thought about, but these water fountains were identified as sticking out into the hallway, which could create a barrier for somebody who is visually impaired. And this is an example of one. This was over at the police department, so this is one we would hope to address as we go through that expansion over there at that building. And then they identified certain amenities that also created some barriers. And the first one you might recognize is our Millbridge Park. Limited accessibility to both the seating as well as the stage at that site. Recommended some accessible seating in our picnic shelters. And this one, you can also pretty quickly see this bench is limited accessibility in getting to that bench to use the seating. Recommending that we make those a little more accessible. And then our last area of self-assessment is page 9, pedestrian facilities and public rights-of-way. Mayor Curran, this is the one you were referring to earlier about crosswalks, this sort of thing. There's 2 areas that we look at here because we have both town-maintained streets within town, and then there's the state-maintained streets here within town. So we look at these for both of those. In terms of the town streets, we do try to make sure that those meet ADA standards at the time they are constructed. If standards have changed or things need some remediation, then as we go back and do resurfacing or other types of utility work on that street, then we address those ADA issues at that time. Some of the things we look at are curb ramps. So how somebody transitions from the sidewalk onto the street. We look at the quality of the sidewalks. Is it something that's visible and easy to follow if you're an individual with vision impairments? And then you want to look at the actual crosswalks themselves. Now, some of our modern crosswalk signals have audio signals to let you know, not just a visual, but they'll give you a noise when it's time. And then I just learned, too, that some have vibrating buttons. So if you have a hearing impairment, you're able to hold your hand or touch that little thing, and it'll vibrate when it's time for you to go ahead and cross. But you also want to look at the placement of those. This was an example of where a crosswalk pole was in a location that was inaccessible for someone with a disability. That's off the internet. So, and then we also have our state-maintained streets in town, and that's one, I'm sure, with our Main Street Vision Plan and that project that'll be going on in the next few years, we'll be hitting a lot of those.
Our what
and
maintained streets?
State maintained.
So can I add, comment on that?
Mm-hmm.
That's on page 9. So if you look at that list, actually those are all going to be funded by DOT.
Thank God.
Right, they were able to access a program through federal government. They came through here, did this list. We worked with them about a year ago, and they were going to get that started this summer, and it's been delayed. They now say March 2022, but as we talk to them, we have strongly advocated that they do these at the same time as our Main Street project so that we don't go back and forth. And that's why when you see our Main Street project, we did not include any ADA ramps in that because they're already going to do it with this program. So we hope that all coincides and happens together. But that was a real savings for us and for the grant programs that we didn't have to include that in the grant program. So those are all going to be, all these are going to be improved in the next year or two.
I have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know how you have 408 South Main Street and 410 and 413? So is that the whole street? That consists of that whole street, each structure?
That's the ramp in front of those structures. Mm-hmm.
408 and 410 both have a ramp in front of it?
There's a corner ramp there, I believe. I don't know. I'd have to go look. But
Oh, so maybe from, okay.
2 corners.
Right, I get it.
Okay. So one of the other components that's required in a transition plan is that town outline a procedure for those who have a grievance or an issue that they would like to have resolved. So page 10 has, oh, I'm sorry, not page 10. This is one part where I did not follow the actual outline. It is page 12, has the grievance procedure. There are 5 steps about how to file, sets some deadlines for acknowledgement, initial resolution, etc. And indicates that those grievances would be submitted to the town's ADA coordinator. Now, obviously, if you have a very large city, they have multiple ADA coordinators, and some have just one. As we looked at our team and we looked at our staff and what we were expecting in terms of issues that might arise, we have proposed that we have 2 ADA coordinators for the town, that one be more externally focused and one be more internally focused. So we have Michael McFarland, who deals a lot with our local business community, who has a good relationship with our planning department, that he would be addressing any issues that arise that are externally related. And Ms. Diva Hill from HR would be the main person to deal with any ADA compliance issues internally, whether it's through hiring, onboarding, or should an employee develop an issue, or anybody internal to the organization needs a reasonable accommodation.
And what about for the public? Does our clerk play a role in that as well? Like if somebody has some accessibility issues that's trying to reach us from the public to the town, or would that go to Daiva?
Right, so the idea is that the ADA coordinators are the initial point of contact, particularly for grievances. But yes, obviously, Robin's been a part of this as well. If we have a public meeting, we need an interpreter. She's got to have those resources right there and ready to go. So we've brought her in with some of these conversations as well.
The only reason I say that is because I get a lot of questions from the public on who should I reach out to. So as long as it's clear, either on the website and I say website.
Yes.
They can,
Yes,
Gotcha.
they can always go to them, and then they will get the resources that they need.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. All right, and so now we go back to page 10 about public outreach. This is also required in a component of the transition plan, is that we reach out to members of the community and get some feedback. Daiva did make some contacts in community partners who provide services to individuals with disabilities, and we have sent this draft transition plan to them. Page 11 has a summary of some of the comments we received. Those comments, to the extent we could, have already been incorporated into this draft plan before you tonight. So we appreciate their input and suggestions that they came up with. We have had this plan out on the website for a few weeks, and then tonight is the public meeting, so that if we do have anyone who wishes to come to add additional comments, this is an opportunity for them to do so. So, Mayor, this is the appropriate section. I don't know if anyone is here, but this would be the appropriate time. If you all have questions, you've been all along, but if you have any others, we can address those now, or if anyone is here to speak.
Robin, can you check and see if anybody next door?
I have a quick question for you. Spanish to English or any other language? No, English to whatever other language.
Yeah, that is, and that was in note. One of the comments from one of our reviewers was being able to provide those types of services as well.
So how would you do that?
Yeah, that's something for us to work on. You know, as we've done that inventory, that's one of those areas that we need to figure out some good resources and figure out how to do that.
Have you ran into that issue yet?
You know, I'm not as front as much as I used to be, but, you know, occasionally we would have folks come in, but not, you know, it wasn't overwhelming. And it wasn't always necessary. It was a variety of different languages.
So if we get notified someone's coming that needs special service, you know, sign language, something like that, do we have a resource we can reach out to provide that on demand almost, or how does that work?
Yeah, our clerk has.
We have a list of several agencies that provide interpretation services
that would be language which includes sign language, as I think you said, or Spanish or French or.
Mostly Spanish. I'll have to delve in further to find out the full gamut of languages that they offer. I imagine there's a one that.
You know, when I remember when my daughter was in Rosa Elementary School, there was a little girl, Korean. Her parents couldn't speak any English, and they were calling around trying to figure out something that had happened that day in school. So I was just a little curious about that. And I know the courts have people on file as well that they call to do their interpretation, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You looking for adoption?
Well, was there anyone? No. Okay. So, well, that's a great segue into the next slide, which is next steps. So this is just a draft plan at this point. But eventually, yes, Mr. Bear, we would be looking for the board to adopt a final transition plan. If things look good, that might be as soon as the next meeting. But if you have more questions or concerns or things you want to talk through, we can always work through those and then do this at a later date.
I thought I read somewhere that that's what we were doing today. No?
Yeah, tonight, really the purpose of tonight was just to, more of the work session type atmosphere, to talk through the plan, answer any questions you all have, so that we don't hit you cold, you know, on a day you need to adopt.
Let's just leave it open for at least one meeting to see if there's any other public input. We didn't have anybody come tonight, but if they hear us talking about it, they may want to add something. So.
I have a point of clarification on page 11, where it says summary of public comments. So when I read that as a standalone, right, I know the part was there before, but when I read it as a standalone, I was like, oh, the public commented, how cool. That's not the case, right? This was these agencies
Right.
that gave feedback, right? So I do think the titling of that needs to be changed. Because public comments, when I hear that, as a board member, I think of our public, right? Town of Rolesville residents commenting. I thought, wow, that's great. I'm so excited.
It's a lot of participation.
But that's not what that is. So we
Yeah.
probably want to just clarify that these are public comments that were submitted by these agencies. That's it. Just for clarification.
The only thing I had on it too was I like the note at the very bottom of our page. It's just making sure we have something really specific on our website that points somebody to that director, because we're 99% of the way there. I just don't want somebody to give up and say, well, I couldn't find it. I don't know who
Right.
the director is and everything else, or the coordinator, if we have something for that.
So I did put this plan out there. If you go to the very bottom of our website, it is the very bottom right. It's at the bottom of every single page, no matter which town web page you go to. It says accessibility.
Okay.
That's when I'm going to other places and other towns' websites. That seems to be the common way they do that. So that's there. Once this is adopted, our policy will go out there, the grievance procedure, the form, all of that will go there.
Okay.
So yes, absolutely. That communication piece is an essential part of making sure all this is successful.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so the other piece, once you adopt the plan, of course, it doesn't stop there. We have to continue with our implementation. And then it's really an ongoing process. Again, we've learned a lot. It's raised our awareness on staff of some of these issues. And it's something that we just need to keep working on, monitoring and evaluating what we provide, and to make sure that we make it accessible for all. That's all I have.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. Good presentation, and I think this is very forward thinking, and something that it's good that I agreed. I thought we'd been doing this for years and years, and we probably have, but probably not to the level it needs to be done. So, and there's a difference there. So, thank you, Amy. Thanks for all the work to put into this. Next item is public hearing on case ANX 20-02 Evans property, and this property is at 3608 Foxwall Lane. So is Danny here to speak on that?
Good evening. Hope you're doing well. I think the Mayor's already introduced the item. So this is dealing with a public hearing, on a request for voluntary annexation, ANX 20-02, David and Ashley Evans voluntary annexation. This is 1.818 acres at 3608 Foxwell Drive. Foxwell Drive is this red area here. This is Forestville Road, and this is Foxwell Drive. Their address is off of their driveway here. It is in proximity of Stonewater and the Regency at Heritage. That's the gray area, which is a satellite annexation. This will also be a non-contiguous annexation, and they are wanting to tap on the town's or the city of Raleigh water system. By doing so requires voluntary annexation. Water and sewer services is available existing out here on Forestville Road. So whenever they're ready to tap, they can do so. At this time, they will be tapping the water and stay on the septic tank system. However, they will be entitled when they're ready or there's an issue with the septic tank system to tap onto the city of Raleigh. And that, of course, there'll be the fees and charge at that time. So we have received the petition. We have been certified as sufficient by the town clerk, and we are setting a public hearing for right now to conduct the public hearing to annex this property into Rolesville. And the applicant is here in the room. Is there any questions?
How did this come about? I never understand these.
The individual inquired with the town about tapping into the water system.
Our water system.
And then, of course, where it is available very easily, it works out very well. Some locations, we don't have water lines there.
So
or
right
sewer.
now, I'm sorry, go ahead.
In certain locations, we don't have necessarily water and sewer service, so sometimes the inquiries are not productive. In this case, Mr. Evans, the water and sewer line was right there in front of his house.
Yeah, Danny's right. I had a call actually this week from a homeowner out on Burlington Mills Road. You're going out there probably about 2 miles out of town. But he's in our ETJ, and they had their water test. I think Wake County recommended them testing their water, and they had their water tested, and they had radon in it, which everybody has radon and has well water. So, you know, that's a bad thing in Wake County. I think everybody has that. But he also had some type of contaminant chemical in there too that was probably been in there for 30 years. And he was requesting how could he get onto our water system, but I understand it's so far, it's probably a mile and a half out there that would have to extend lines for him to be annexed, and we just couldn't do it. But I think we're going to have more and more of these issues come up about good water, and as we plan subdivisions in the future, I think Stonewater is one of them. You know, it'd be good to have the local people be able to tap in and be able to do this more. Because really the only option he's got is filters. I don't know how good they are. But
They pay for that, correct?
The individual would have to pay for the expense, or the developer. Now, what works out best is a developer goes build like has happened here. They extend the lines, therefore it crosses near their properties, and then they can tap into it. But, Mr. Mayor, we're in order now to proceed with your public hearing, if there's not any more questions.
Would you like to hear from the applicant, Mayor?
yeah, you done, Danny? Okay. Well, I'll already open the public hearing, so let me hear anyone in favor of the motion. So, if you're in favor, go right ahead.
Yes, sir, I'm in favor. We'd like to get access to the water system. We definitely have radon and uranium in our well as well. It's,
So, how long have you lived there?
about a little over 3 years.
I thought I remember been years ago, maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago, we did allow somebody to tap on, or either they talked about it and they didn't do it one.
The original owners, from my understanding, looked into it, and at the time made a decision not to. and went ahead and dug a well. And you know, the house was tested for radon back in those days, and it was negative. But something's happened, and I kind of wonder if it's all the blasting of the rock, because we've got a big, huge problem with radon in the air now. It's been remediated, but we also have that in the well, bacteria as well as uranium and radon. So as I understand, there's a rock bed that kind of runs through this whole area, and there's some real issues.
It does.
Do you know if your neighbor had a problem as well?
I don't know if they've actually tested it. I speculate they do, with some of the health issues that I'm aware of.
Oh,
Absolutely.
okay.
But I don't know if any kind of facts.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any questions, board? Yeah, okay, thank you. Any other here in favor, to speak in favor? Any comments here to speak in opposition? The board have any more questions for the applicant or Danny, either one? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. And I will entertain a motion from the board.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve voluntary annexation of ANX 2020 David and Ashby Evans for 1.972 acres located at 3608 Foxwild Lane into the Rolesville town limits.
Second.
Okay, I've heard a motion and a second. Is any further discussion on the matter? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Didn't hear any. Unanimous approved. Welcome to town. Hopefully we'll send a bill tomorrow, maybe.
Remember you asked for this. I'm calling on you.
Good one.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate you coming. Okay. Town attorney, any report from you?
No, sir.
You took off your mask. I thought you had a long.
I did too.
No, I learned my lesson earlier in this meeting.
Town manager, do you have a report for us?
Just a reminder that for now, your next work session is going to be July 16th with a joint chamber board meeting that Commissioner Sutton talked about. It's going to be a virtual at 6 o'clock. More information forthcoming on that. And then on July 24th, you do have a special town board virtual work session starting at 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. There will be 2 1-hour items on that session. The first one will be the text amendment that was tabled at our last meeting to do a work session on that. And the second item will be a draft of the mixed use downtown district that will be used for the new UDO that we're moving and expediting to try and meet a potential private public development on Main and Young Street. So that'll be your first introduction to that and all the components with that. So that includes the parking associated with that zoning, the signage and such. So it's going to be a fairly detailed work session.
And the date of that one is?
The date on that is July 24th at 8 a.m. and I think you should have it in your calendar.
I've got it.
So.
I thought I had 8 to 1. Did I? It was never 1 o'clock?
I don't know. I think, Robin, did you happen to send out that calendar invite yet?
I have 8 to 10.
Yeah, 8 to 10.
I had an 8 to 1 at first.
You did as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's long.
Hey, whatever's in here.
We can go to one if you want.
It may last to one, so leave
Yeah.
it like it is for right now.
Robin, I did try to respond to those that you sent, but I couldn't open it. And I'll show you after the meeting.
Real briefly, since the summer's broken out, we've continued to have a rise of golf carts used on town streets occasionally. So the police department is out there educating. We're going back and hearkening to the work session that you held October of 2018, where we agreed that we did not want to do a local ordinance but follow the state statutes, which is they must be road worthy. So just so you know, if you see a golf cart out there, look carefully. If it doesn't have a license plate, then call it in. But if it is, it could have roadworthiness. Just real briefly, our future facility discussion that was funded in the this year's budget has started, and we met with the consultant on that, and we'll be getting more information to you on that soon. We've also kicked off the start of the feasibility of the DOT property on Young and 401 to see if that is feasible for potential public works facility in the future. And then also, we had an exciting meeting. I felt very excited with Stantec, where they revealed to Michael and I what their first draft of 2 options for Young and Main Street will look like. What we have asked them to do, instead of trying to schedule stakeholder meetings and such, they're going to videotape a session to review those 2 options, and we're going to send it out to you and others in that area to review. And you can do it on your leisure. We'll probably have a short time to review it, but we're going to let you review it. It'll be kind of a taped presentation. We'll ask that you provide comments and such, but look forward to that coming to you in the next week or 2. But it is pretty exciting what they're proposing to do there.
And that's for where?
That is for the intersection of Young and Main as part of the grant program, the Main Street grant program. We really wanted to start on that, make sure we got that right, and that really sets the pace for the rest of the street, the whole streetscape. If you haven't been by the school park, that we reached an agreement with Wake County for their exit on that. They did go in and put some new mulch down. They did some bush trimming. They painted the doors of the concession stand, and they took the sign away. So if you drive by there and look over there, the frame is still there, but they took their sign, which is okay. I think because it
For
said
the Wake County Public Schools.
yeah, the Wake County School Park sign. So that gives us an open platform, which was good. So anyway, something I think JG intends to bring back to the Parks and Rec Board is maybe, do you want to keep that name or do something else? But we have the opportunity to create a new kind of sign for that area. Last but not least, we received a note from Wake County that they were in receipt of a large shipment of face coverings from the federal government. Department of Health and Human Services shipped a large shipment. They asked each municipality if they wanted to participate in that, and we actually picked up our distribution yesterday. The intent is primarily for local businesses that need them, for employers who have employees that need them and make sure they have the opportunity. They're thinking of large employers that need them and such like that. So our first call will be Michael calling businesses in town and saying, hey, we have these available. Would you like them? How many do you want? And then we'll see how that goes, and then we'll talk about maybe distribution further beyond that. But I did want to give you each one. They're a pack of 5. They're cloth. They have copper and zinc in them. They're good for up to 15 washes. And if you go on their website, you can see all about how to put them on properly and to wash them properly. But anyway, we'll start that effort. We'll keep track of them, and then let you know as we progress how many more we have. But they're in storage unit right now, but we will distribute those and start distributing them as we need. So that's all I have, Mayor.
How many brass are there? Okay. What's a lot?
It's pretty good. It's good. That is great.
Thank you. Town staff, any reports from town staff?
Thank you, Kelly.
I'll be quick and brief. Well, June's been a very busy month in the planning department, as you probably know from the various things on the agenda. But just to let you know, for the month of June, we did get 20 single-family home permits issued, which was good for the month of June. And as of right now, from January to June, we're at 83, which is a good threshold. We're halfway. of the 150 plus that we're looking for in the annual part of the year, which is putting us a little bit ahead than we were this time last year. We did finish out the 2019 fiscal year with 151, which was well within the goal. So everything is looking good. You'll have a little bit more detailed information when we get to the next meeting where we'll do our monthly reports, printed reports we do on that. I'm also going to let you know that we have a lot going through the TRC. Right now there are 13 projects in review. And I'm saying projects as either preliminary plats, site plans, or construction drawings. So there'll be a lot of meetings and hearings for consideration in the future, and we're working on trying to get those all done expeditiously as possible because everybody's wanting to move ahead. And that's all I have to report, Mayor.
Thank you, Danny. Any other reports?
You've probably seen enough of me already tonight, but so my report will be brief. Just let you know we just finished up one fiscal year. We're starting off a new one, so our staff has been very busy wrapping things up, making sure everything reconciles, doing our closing entries, and preparing everything for the new year. On the human resources side, as we mentioned during the budget presentation, we did change some of our employee benefits for health insurance and et cetera. And so they've been working very hard to make sure we get that implemented and get everything squared away and provide those benefits for employees. So we've all been working very quick, very industriously, and hopefully we'll start to see the light of day soon.
Good evening. I'll keep it brief as well. First, I want to thank all of our staff in Parks and Recreation and Public Works for all the work they've been doing. They've been almost working double time for the last 4 or 5 months preparing for July through December programming as we're going to go as normal, and also working on virtual programming. So we're really tasked our staff to work a lot harder the last 3 or 4 months. When most people think we're taking it easy, we're actually working a lot harder, trying to make sure we're staying relevant in the community, providing programming opportunities for the citizens of Rolesville. We did start summer camp on time, and as we planned on starting, we did reduce our numbers in half to we're only taking 12 participants per week for the 9 weeks, and we're still full at capacity with those numbers. We've had a lot of conversations. Let me back up a little bit. We're doing all the precautionaries that we can. We're doing everything that CDC says we should be doing with both staff and participants every morning when they get there, throughout the day, and when they leave as well. So we're making sure we're doing everything we can to keep everyone in a safe environment. There's been a lot of conversations. You'll probably hear more of those coming out in the next couple of weeks with a lot of Wake County, the municipalities and YMCAs about how can we help with the child care and learning of the students that are going to be on the Plan B option where they go for 1 week and out for 2 weeks. The big focus is the K-5 group, as those are children that cannot be left home alone and probably need the most assistance with some of their work as well. So that's what we're trying to work with families and seeing how we can, but it is going to be a challenge with the reduced numbers that we can have in facilities. So there's a lot of ongoing conversations about that right now, and we hope to work up a plan in the next couple of weeks to help offset that, depending on which way the governor goes with the announcement of schools. So again, our staff's doing a great job staying on top of that and working with that as well. In front of you, we passed out the Rolesville Rec Guide. We did not print any hard copies this year just because it's so much unknown. Again, our staff did a great job of preparing this programming on a limited basis, hoping that we can program again here in the near future. So that's why everything is all digital online, so we can go in and change as needed. Hope you go to the recreation page. It's one of the first things on the main recreation page. It's actually interactive now. It's a lot more user-friendly. And there's also a short video on the cover page. I think it's the second picture down on the right. If you actually click, you see a part of the parade when we did the teacher parade back in the spring as well. So we're getting more creative in what we can and can't do with this publication as well, going digital. So again, just really want to thank staff on that. On the public works side of things, I'd like to thank those guys for everything they've been doing to keep the grounds up. Even in the challenging times, they still, they're essential employees to come in and make sure that we're keeping the town looking at the beautification of the town as we move forward as well. As Kelly mentioned, we have we're able to complete several projects at the ball fields. You know, there's new fencing's up. We got new concrete curbing to keep the dirt in, which will save us money moving forward, keeping the dirt actually on the playing field instead of running out into the bleacher area. So our public works staff's been doing a lot and engaging with those programs as well. We did do registration. Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
I saw the fencing. I love the black fencing. By the way, I walk up there a lot. But I saw the concrete part that you talked about. Was that done by the same company?
No, ma'am. We did a different concrete company. We contracted that out.
Just an FYI, I saw a crack in concrete.
Okay.
So
We'll go out there and take another look at it.
I saw that the other day, so I went, no way. So hopefully they can fix that.
Yep.
But yeah, it looks
Yes,
great.
ma'am. We did do our fall registration for athletics. As of right now, we've checked with our peers in Eastern Wake County, and we still have the highest numbers in youth athletics for the fall. I know a lot of numbers are really low. Our numbers are low for us right now as well. We obviously with the uncertainty, but we do still have a pretty good solid number, which makes us feel good about the trust that families have with us, make sure we're going to provide quality programming in a safe manner. So again, depending on how we can move forward, it's good to know that people are still wanting to be engaged and involved here in Rolesville. So we're excited about that and making sure that we're doing what we need to do to be safe moving forward as well.
How many of those kids are Roseville kids?
That was my next.
Yeah, I don't have those numbers. They'll be at the next report over the FYI, but I think if we're probably at least 50% or more where we're at. So that trend, 5-6 years ago, we're 30% residents. We're up to 50-60% now. So we're making really big strides as our population grows. Obviously, it makes sense for our resident numbers, because we're at capacity pretty much for all our athletic programming. So we're getting those residents get first 2 weeks of registration that only they can sign up. So they're all getting in first as long as they sign up in that period. So we do make sure we're looking after the residents first and foremost when they register, and then the rest of the registrations is open registration for both residents and non-residents.
Is that the same for summer camp?
Summer camp, we have opened it up. We talked about it, but summer camp is majority. It's a high percentage of residents as well. And what we did when we had to go and refund folks when we reduced our numbers, we took residents first. No matter how they signed up, we went to the first residents first and then worked our way down the list. Yes, ma'am. So we did want to be mindful of that. And one other quick thing on special events we got coming up. We're planning that we're going to have our Fall Fun Fest, and as of today, we've already had 34 vendors already sign up, and it started July 1 registration.
So you're taking money now, not just reservations?
Majority of them are just forms right now. I don't think, maybe only a handful maybe you've paid right now, and so we can refund it back out through the system, so it's not that big of a deal if we refund them in October, if we refund them today. So right now we're just taking forms. So forms in hand is 34.
Oh, that's awesome.
In a week. So again, it speaks volumes of how our staff's done a great job of building up these programs. Again, 10 years ago there was 15 vendors. So just to see how it's come, last year's close to 100 vendors. So hopefully, we can make great strides as a community and to be able to have these events in the future.
What's the proposed date of the Fall Fest?
October 24th?
October 24th. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep, it should be the fourth Saturday in October. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
What are you doing in regards to, because Millbrook had their little issue yesterday. What are you doing with the kids that come in on a daily basis?
So every kid, every participant that walks in the door gets their temperature check as soon as they walk in, and we go through the list of questions with them. Do you have, do you have a cough? Do you have any whatever the symptoms? There's 5 or 6 things we ask every kid or every participant that walks through the door. Same thing for our counselors. They're getting the same questions and same treatment as the kids or the participants, and all of the counselors are wearing masks 100% in the building as well. Children over 11 are also wearing masks inside the building as well.
So,
You take
have you had
temperatures.
anybody with the temperature come out yellow or red? Do they go back home, or how do you handle that?
Knock on wood, we haven't had any of those situations, but if someone did have a temperature, they would have to leave the facility. Yes, ma'am. And luckily, we've had a lot of Kristen's doing a great job of communicating every week with the families and laying it all out each week. So a lot of kids are repeats. We do have some new kids that, filter in a week or so. So every week that information is going out. This is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. And this is what it means if this does come up. So every week they're getting an email with almost information overload of making sure that we're communicating with those parents. And they know what we're doing with our staff as well.
That's stuck in my thought.
Okay.
That was it. Okay.
quick question, JD. This is more on the public work side.
Okay.
A few weeks ago, we had several complaints about the bypass. I know we don't cut grass on the bypass, but it was more from a safety concern. They couldn't see how to get out in the intersection. And I think it was cut probably by DOT. Are we just keeping an eye on that? Or somebody keep an eye so we can get DOT out there before we start hearing the complaints and stuff?
We are. I've made several phone calls to DOT, and we're not the only agency or citizens in North Carolina calling DOT right now about the right-of-way cutting. Obviously, with their budget and staffing their contract, they're really cutting back on those. But I was able to get to a good contact, and they came out the next day and cut a couple intersections, and we called back about the others, and they put it on the schedule to come out to hit just the intersections. With the rain, they're a little bit behind right now, but we are, I would say, in the next week or so to get all of our right-of-ways cut along the bypass here in the next week or so.
But if it's dangerous, you've been directed to cut.
Yes, if it gets to the point where we need to, our staff will go out there and address the immediate area of the intersections. Yes, sir.
Did anyone see the area by Rolesville High School? No?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Because I couldn't figure out what are they talking about until I went all the way down. So forget it, I'm turning around. And as soon as I decided to turn around, that's where I saw. It was pretty.
All right.
Appreciate that, JD.
Yes, sir, no problem. Thank you.
Any other reports?
I'll go next. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Good to see everyone. Just as other parts of local government and aspects of government, the town's Economic Development Department has had to adjust and learn new ways of doing things during these times. Over the last few months, we've been sort of in response mode, as many businesses have either had to close down temporarily or kind of adjust how they're doing things. So we've been doing our best to share resources that became available and keeping tabs, checking in on businesses, seeing how they're doing, and seeing what the need is in the community. Recently, the Small Business Association released a list of loan recipients of the Payroll Protection Program, and this was the program established to help companies stay in business and avoid having to make layoffs. The information released consisted of those who received loans of more than $150,000. In Rolesville, 5 entities received these loans in the range of about $150,000 to $350,000. They don't report on the exact amount of the loan, but did give that range. And there were 5 companies in Rolesville that received loans in that range. We don't have information. The SBA hasn't released information on recipients of loans less than $150,000. So there could be more in Rolesville that would have applied for less. So we'll see if that comes out later.
Can
So
you
I just
repeat
want to
that?
understand something.
Did
Okay.
I hear that clearly? Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So the SBA's released information on loan recipients in that if you've received a loan of more than $150,000, if you received a loan of less than $150,000, we don't have that information.
See, that's so important to have that information, so that's unfortunate that you don't.
But
Yep.
my question is, there's
Yeah.
5 companies in Rolesville that received it, right? I just want to make sure I heard you right.
Yes, five entities in Rolesville that operate businesses have received loans in the amount of between $150,000 to $350,000. We don't kind of know. They've just given the range. They haven't said specifically what the loan amounts are for.
Got you. Thank you.
And our town manager had shared the information about the Wake Forward program. That's the local Wake County program. And as of July 1st, in our zip code, 27571, no loans were approved for that program. And again, that doesn't necessarily mean nobody had applied, but just that no loans were approved in our zip code for the Wake Forward Small Business Relief Program.
And that one's up to 50,000? What was that number?
That was only five. That was
5 or 10,000.
That was $5 million total. I forget. Yeah, I'd have to look in to see what
Amount. It
No
wasn't-
worries.
the
it
limit
wasn't
was on the.
150, that's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget what that kind
worry
of
about
cap was on
follow up.
what you could ask for. And we continue to work closely with our Chamber of Commerce to build upon the relationship we have. As a reminder, we are hosting our annual joint meeting with the Chamber Board of Directors on July 16th. Our town clerk sent out information on that. So that'll be a Zoom meeting where we can join virtually. wherever you may be that night. So I'm working with Rachel, the executive director, on setting that agenda, and more to come on that. Interest does persist and has not seemed to slow down in Rolesville as we remain an attractive place to live. I know Danny spoke to the residential permitting activity actually having increased in comparison to this time last year. I continue to have conversations weekly with area real estate brokers, with clients that are interested in Rolesville. And I was reading earlier today in Wake County, I know while commercial sales have kind of slowed down a bit, property sales have increased 25% from May to June, so just in the last month, and they're up 3% from this time last year. And in June, there were 41 active economic development projects in the county, and these are companies seeking to either move here or expand here. And this time last year, in June 2019, there were 45 active projects. So, very comparable, despite the environment we're in with COVID-19. Some projects have delayed their timelines, yet none have completely sort of dropped out or said they're not moving forward. And here in Rolesville, we continue to pursue our Main Street grant project, continue to work with developers who have proposed mixed-use developments, both at Young and Main Street, and then also at the Burlington Mills Road intersection in Maine. Both these projects planning to bring thousands of square footage of retail space. So still working forward in that regard. In terms of potential new commercial construction and just some of the highlights, and you've seen this in other reports as well. A volleyball organization has proposed an indoor multiple court volleyball facility with space for beach volleyball courts as well off of Granite Falls Boulevard. So we look forward to hearing more about that. CrossFit has proposed a new location next to the State Employees Credit Union. And we hope to see groundbreak soon on the 3-story medical dental office building at the corner of Main and Rogers Road. So I hope to, in addition to the permitting activity report, hope to be able to provide to the board kind of, when you do get asked on the street in town, where's all the commercial activity in Rolesville? Something that I can provide to the board that is kind of a one-pager that you'd be able to refer to moving forward and start to do that on a regular basis. While tourism has taken a huge hit due to COVID-19, I did meet with representatives from the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau about a new program they're heading up to provide people with unique experiences across the county. The program's called People First Tourism. Their mission is to kind of, have travelers develop these deep connections with their hosts. It's about a transformative, genuine local culture experience. And so over the next year, they'll be gathering information on potential sites and places of interest in Rolesville. So I've been talking with them. Think our farmers market. There's a vineyard where you can pick your own grapes on North Main Street. That'll open up in August here. If all goes well, I don't know if they'll have new COVID-19 requirements or regulations, but Perry Farms, just off the bypass there. I believe they provide the hops or barley for a large brewery in Durham. So those are the kind of experiences where the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau are trying to, promote, and they've asked, for some places here in Rolesville where, somebody that's coming in from out of town that might visit Raleigh, and what could we kind of provide if they want to take a little day trip out to Rolesville. So lastly, I thought I'd just share a few predictions I heard at a recent virtual economic development session hosted by Wake County Economic Development. Ted Abernathy of Economic Leadership, LLC, which is a group focused on strategic thinking, research, economic development policy. He shared some predictions for what the new normal would look like as our economy continues to sort of adjust and struggles to adjust to the impact of the pandemic. He admitted it's too early to know all the long-term trends, but I just wanted to read a few of these here, these general predictions. So the new normal in 2021 and beyond. More workers will continue working from home well into the future. Real estate usage will require rebalancing. Labor force participation rates will fall, yet we will still have a skilled worker shortage. Consumers will continue to some online purchasing habits that they've recently learned, especially the new older shoppers. But weaker brick and mortar retail will close in waves. Household savings
Wait, go
rates.
back. What did you say?
I'm sorry.
What did you say about brick and mortar?
These weaker brick and mortar, the J.C. Penney's of
Oh,
the
okay.
world.
Thought you were talking about small business, brick and
No,
mortar. Okay, made me nervous.
retail. We'll start to see these close in waves, as we have already. Household savings rates will remain higher, reducing overall consumption and acting as an overall growth throttle for economic development down the road. Students could be down in public schools, higher education and childcare programs. Businesses will deploy robots and automation anywhere they can to moderate future disruptions. Global geopolitics will have a greater impact on our daily lives. We will all have a new appreciation for the value of universal high-speed internet and broadband. So, as you all have probably experienced already, and people are going to reevaluate where and how they want to live. So he said that Mr. Abernathy said that the Raleigh-Cary metro area will continue to be one of the most competitive places for new talent and new investment. So, I think comparatively we are in a good spot. Just want to share.
I would add one component to Mr. Abernathy's assessment. The medical field has changed. The whole virtual appointment, you don't have to go to the doctor and wait 30 minutes to be seen for 5 minutes. You can just sign on for your appointment and be seen right away. But I do think this pandemic is changing business in a big, big way. Big way. But the medical field has definitely been impacted.
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, have you heard anything in regards to small businesses folding up in Rolesville? Any of those numbers come? I know there's been a few.
Yeah. Not specifically.
Just a few that
I know a few. Yeah, we're struggling. Yeah. Again, I wish we would know kind of who. I mean, nobody. It seemed like nobody got approved for that Wake Forward program. But again, the next question would be who applied. If we could ask that.
And we're working on a list of the brick and mortar businesses in Rolesville. I don't know how far we've gotten on that, but that's something we wanted to look at. We know there's a lot of home-based businesses, but also trying to assess how many brick and mortar businesses are there in Rolesville. When I worked downtown Raleigh, I remember somebody said there's 192 restaurants. This was 10 years ago, maybe more. When I was down there, I was like, really? Where are they? So it's way more businesses than you may think. So I know we're working on compiling that list.
Yep.
Yeah, working with the chamber on that.
And that's another thing. I know the chamber's struggling in regards to, I mean, I guess everybody is in a sense. Do I pay to keep my membership, chamber, Wake Forest, what have you? Or do I just put all my money into my business to keep my doors open? So that's a big concern as well.
Yeah, tough decisions for a lot of businesses out there right now.
Good update, Mike.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks.
Michael, you mentioned briefly the 3-story building, and you said they are going to start that soon, or?
Their original plan was late spring, but I think some things got held up.
Yeah,
So-
the death in the family too.
Yeah, but ownership did change recently.
But it's still viable right now.
It sounds like they're still, willing to move forward and want to. Latest we checked. I don't know if you've heard. No building permits yet, but.
They haven't what, Danny?
They have not applied for any building permits.
That was
Building
my next
permit
question.
yet.
My next question was that. Okay.
But I understand they're anxious to get into Roseville. I just personally know somebody there, that's why I say that. Hey, Chief.
How are you? All right. Good evening, Mayor, Board of Commissioners, Attorney Neal, Madam Clerk, Mr. Arnold, and Roseville citizens. Since the COVID-19, we haven't seen much of each other, and we've been taking all the necessary precautions and have utilized other means of communication to ensure that we're being responsible, task-oriented, and informed on current events. Our staff has been wonderful. They've showed up, answered the bell without hesitation. No one's complained, and they're ready to protect and serve the community. So with that said, I know that in the last several weeks, we've been seeing a number of measures being recommended following the death of George Floyd. The 8 Can't Wait, a set of policy provisions that have been recommended by activist groups, defunding law enforcement, disbanding law enforcement agencies, and the elimination of qualified immunity in civil suits. None of us are perfect. We all could improve in our personal and professional lives. Unfortunately, we still have a lot of work to do. We have to just sit down and communicate with one another and get to the root cause of whatever that issue is. I have not heard one police officer, sheriff's deputy, state police officer, law enforcement executive, law enforcement trainer, or law enforcement expert offer an excuse for the Minneapolis officers involved or statements that suggest that anything the officers did was reasonable. Instead, there has been overwhelming criticism and outrage due to the actions of those officers. Most of the recommendations now getting attention are not new and predate the death of George Floyd by years. As you know, the Rolesville Police Department we have worked tirelessly to incorporate policies and procedures to ensure that our officers are acting accordingly in all circumstances. This was evident by our recent recognition in January 2020 by the League of Municipalities for a successful review of our high liability risk policies. I wasn't going to bore you with this, but I feel it's necessary. In law enforcement, we took an oath of office to be alert and vigilant, to enforce the criminal laws of this state, to not be influenced in any manner on account of personal bias or prejudice, to support and maintain the constitutions and the laws of the United States and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, including the laws and ordinances of the town of Rolesville, to faithfully and impartially discharge and execute these duties of our office as a police officer for the town of Rolesville according to the best of our skills, abilities, and judgment. So help us God. Under my command, that's going to remain steadfast. I promise that to continue to incorporate best practices, procedures, the best training, and provide stellar customer service to all our community and all our citizens. Talking about our community, we have received numerous phone calls, emails, visits from citizens, their children, business owners, wanting to show their support, to say thank you, and let us know that they're praying for our country and for those of us who protect and serve in law enforcement. I would like to thank the Rolesville community for their overwhelming support. It has been truly humbling and a reminder how great of a community we protect and serve. It is truly an honor to serve the citizens of the town of Rolesville and the motivated men and women of the Rolesville Police Department. And I thank all of you, as always, for your confidence and support in me to lead that department. And I'd like to also say that if any citizen has a question about our practices, our procedures, to not get on any Nextdoor app, social media, or if they contact you, have them contact us directly. We will have no problem sitting down and speaking with them and show them some of our databases and practices and procedures and how we do our daily business, so they don't have any questions and they're fully confident in our abilities. Internally, internal events, Mr. Arnold touched on some of those, so I won't repeat those and bore you with those, but Camp Kids we've had to cancel based on the COVID-19. We look forward to those camps in the future. We have completed our applicant process. We've hired one, and one's in the process of getting his final conditional offer tomorrow. So you'll meet those candidates, new applicants, new hires in the near future. Lieutenant Richard Haynes is attending the North Carolina State University's Administrative Officer Management Program. He will graduate at the end of this month. He'll be returning to us on July 26th. He's had to do it virtually, so that must be a little different. We were hoping he would get the full effect of having to drive there and take the exams and remember everything. So he might have had an advantage or disadvantage, I'm not sure. Also, I've attended my first meeting on this same League of Municipalities risk review that we had here back in January. Chief Sells, that presented us that award, asked if I would be on their Chiefs Advisory Committee, which is comprised of more than 12 police chiefs throughout North Carolina. So I attended my first meeting. I look forward to collaborating with a great group of professionals to incorporate best practices for our profession. That's all I have. If anybody has anything, thank you.
Any questions for the chief? Thank you, Chief. I would say you made the comment, we all can improve. I think that was your words, and I that's a good attitude, and I hope the whole department feels that way and working hard towards that. And I know, and I didn't hear you mention, but I may have missed it. I know the governor is supposed to be putting together a community task force to make some recommendations on a statewide level for improvements and recommendations on that type. And I think we talked about we want to take a real hard look at that and see if anything that we can gather from that to apply to our situations here in town, let's do that. Also, I just want to ask, I haven't heard of anything lately on that governor initiative. Have y'all heard anything?
Not since our last conversation, sir.
I thought they was gonna have something, going by the end of the year, but I hadn't heard
What's
any.
that report from by the end of the year?
Maybe he's tied up with the coronavirus or something, but
I'll check on the status.
yeah, let's check on that because we were kind of dependent on making sure there was any good recommendations that coming out of there that we would use.
I think it'd be another good step for us to be participating. So if there's an opportunity to go down and testify,
Right.
or as they do anything like that, we'll be actively engaged and watching.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
I
Yes,
have
sir.
a question for you.
Yes.
Do you know anything about what's going on with the schools? I mean, your officers will still be there even if they go 1 and 2?
The last we heard, they were going to incorporate some type of 1 week on, 2 weeks on, just some type of tracks, and we don't have anything definitive yet.
I wanted to say thank you, Chief. Thank all the staff, but specifically you. I know that you wrote a letter shortly after the whole Minneapolis thing happened in joint with our mayor, and I got a lot of compliments from citizens. And I will say this, I heard you say, have them contact us directly. A lot of times citizens are intimidated by town staff and the board members.
So I'm big and ugly, but I'm like a teddy bear. It's okay.
So I always try to, if I can be a filter, I will filter it your way. And I think you've gotten a couple of comments that I sent from residents that want to remain nameless. But thank you for those words, as well as the mayor, because people heard that. I had a lot of people reach out to me and say that meant a lot to us. So
Very well.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
for protecting our community.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Was that the last one, or is there more staff here? That was it? Okay. The next item is a closed session request.
Can I add one more thing before we close? And I forgot this on my update. I did get asked to be on a virtual call about diversity from Pastor Tyler. You all probably know Pastor Tyler here in town. And we actually did like a movie review. I can't think of the movie. Just Mercy, which I hadn't seen in a while, so I had to go back and watch it. It is a really hard movie to watch. And then when I watched it again, I went, oh, I know why I didn't watch that again. Anyway, it was a good community conversation. There was probably I expected to be like 10 people. There was probably like 40 people on this virtual call, which to me just said a lot about our community and how we care about what's going on in our society today. So I think they're going to do something ongoing. So I will be letting you all know when that happens. Maybe some of you were invited, but I thought it was a really good call. It was very respectful, and there was a lot of education that went on. Actually, I have a new Facebook friend. Anyway, and I think it's important to get to know people that don't look like you. So I say that in, just in respect to diversity, how it does help us build and make a better community when we reach out beyond our comfort zone. So I just wanted to share that with you. It was a very good call.
That's great. I think there's a lot of great things going on in the community right now. We need to keep that going, even during this coronavirus thing and everybody's staying home. There is ways that we can still do that, and I'm very pleased to live in a community that is doing that very thing. So, thanks for sharing that, Sheila. Anything else, real quick? All right, I entertain a motion.
I've got the motion. I move that the board adjourn to closed session for the following purposes. 1, pursuant to North Carolina General Statute, Section 143-318-11A4, to discuss matters related to the location and expansion of businesses in the town, including agreement on a tentative list of economic development incentives that may be offered by the town board in negotiations. And number 2, pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Section 143-318-11A5, to establish or to instruct the town staff concerning the position to be taken by or on behalf of the town in negotiating the price and other material terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real estate by purchase, option, exchange, or lease.
Okay.
Okay, take a breath there, Jackie.
Oh, what I wouldn't eat.
Thank you.
I got a motion and a second for adjourn to closed session. Is there any other more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, unanimous. We'll go into closed session then. Thank you. Cut your.